The decorations are in place and security has been stepped up here in Beijing, especially along this street, Chang'anjie, which leads to the heart of the Chinese capital, Tiananmen. Come Tuesday, October the 1st, the symbolic site will be the stage for China to showcase its military might. But beyond promoting national pride, it will also be a chance for China to make a clear statement to the world. All this as it faces a growing rivalry with the United States. This as the country celebrates the 70th anniversary of China's Communist Party taking power. In this episode of Correspondents' Diary, we take a closer look at China's dizzying and at times jolting transformation from a poor agrarian society into one of the world's most powerful economies over the last 7 decades.
听众朋友，早上好！南街广播站早间播音现在开始。首先为您预报一下本次播音的主要内容：6点15开始曲《东方红》。
It's 6:15 a.m. in Nanjie village. This is how its residents wake up every morning. The classic 60s anthem, The East is Red, rings through the streets, its lyrics filled with adoration for the late Chinese leader Mao Zedong, who founded modern China 70 years ago. Mao Zedong thought shines bright forever reads the sign. Located in central China's Henan province, this village chose to reverse course to uphold the great helmsman's vision, even as the rest of the country forged ahead with market reform in the late 70s, choosing a collective ownership system not unlike what was seen in the Mao era.
生活上、物质上，还有没有很大的压力啊。对待孩子、老人福利方面都特别的好。
肯定是要出去闯一下，但是最后肯定还是要回到南街村的。
为什么呢？
因为就是这种集体的氛围让我觉得就是在这里确实还挺好的。
Many work at the village-owned factories where items like noodles, food flavoring, and beer are produced. But living collectively means residents don't earn much, as most of what they earn goes to the village. In return, they get free education, healthcare, a monthly allowance for groceries, and an apartment. Large portrait of the revered Chairman Mao included.
这个我们这房子是31厅，92平方米，工业配的这个家具啊，床啊，这个所有这屋里这个中央空调啊都是工业精工。
58-year-old resident Hu Shuli was born and raised in Nanjie village. He now works in the political department and earns just 250 Chinese yuan, or about $40 each month. But the Communist Party member says this is not an issue.
水电气儿全部是按时分配，医疗这方面也是免费的，房子也是免费，学生上学。你在社会上存在这个3大问题、3座大山也好，这几项问题是比较头疼的，比较用钱的地方的。你家里有个大病人，一花有的上百万，你不靠集体，你这就负担不了，
Today, Nanjie village feels like stepping into a time capsule where names like Lenin and Stalin made the news, and the Soviet Union still existed. Now, it's not uncommon to see pictures or statues of Chairman Mao in various parts of China, but to have these huge portraits of his 4 communist comrades being displayed prominently like this, now that's a rare sight, a reminder to the people of China's part in a larger global communist movement. Outside Nanjie village, though, the move to collectivize China's agricultural and industrial economy in the 1950s, including grouping farmers into large communes, soon gave way to the Great Leap Forward. This led to the Great Famine, where millions died from starvation.
Economists, of course, will argue that there's an inherent inefficiency in those kinds of economic institutions. And we look at the fate of state socialism in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe and elsewhere, it seems to be the case that maybe you can succeed in the short term with the intensive kind of development that socialist collectivization brings, but ultimately you're going to need the dynamism of market forces to really keep an economy going.
In the late 70s, China started embracing market forces, and this outcome can't be seen more clearly than in the big Chinese cities we are familiar with today. Whether in Henan's provincial capital, Zhengzhou, or in the country's capital, Beijing. To understand this transition better, I visit veteran photographer and photo collector Kang Xuesong. He owns a small museum on the outskirts of Beijing, the walls of the place recording each step of China's transformation.
这些老照片全部是我收藏的一些老原底片，后来我又放大出来，手工放大出来的一些老底片，基本上是从50年代初期，后30年，我们这个做了整个是全部是彩色的，都是我自己拍的。
Mr. Kang shows me the latest photo series he's put together. As this year marks the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic, the exhibition focuses on Beijing's iconic Tiananmen, or Gate of Heavenly Peace. The place has witnessed just about every twist and turn in the country's history.
当时有很多地方人啊，离北京很远。 来不了，地方的小照相馆呢，就把弄一块木是画的天安门，然后谁想到天安门了，就到照相馆去照一张天安门。然后呢，就是穿出来的绿，就是基本上就是军装，绿就是军装，要不就是黑，要不就是白，要不然，人们那会儿哪敢去穿花衣服啊？不敢穿，你知道吗？慢慢的，从60年代过来了以后，人们开始专门挑花的，挑红色的，挑鲜艳的衣服来穿。
The photos tell a deeper story of the times, including periods which many Chinese are not comfortable discussing. One instance is the Cultural Revolution, a defining period in the history of modern China under Mao. 1966 marked the start of a decade of upheaval. Many were persecuted, and millions are estimated to have died. The turmoil lasted for a decade until Chairman Mao died in 1976, ushering in a new leader credited with being the great architect of China's economic reform. We pick up 61-year-old Han Changjie, or Auntie Han, who worked for many years in a state-owned firm. Now retired, she lives in a suburb in southern Beijing, and our plan is to revisit some of her childhood haunts, a 45-minute drive away. Life for her has changed drastically since China embarked on its reform journey under the late Deng Xiaoping. Over the last 40 years, China has transitioned from a planned economy to one that allows market forces to play out.
2016之前呢，我父亲去世之前的3年，开车去了那个时候那条路还没有完全封，但是正在。 已经做拆迁都差不多了，就是挺有感触的。哎呀，小时候自己的那种，童年的那种，生活环境一下子变成这样了，心里又不禁有点感伤。但是一看呢，因为要盖楼以后呢，那么可能大家搬到楼上，条件也会好很多，最起码不用生火了，是吧？ 卫生条件呀，什么各方面都比较方便。
Pulling up to Auntie Han's old neighborhood, it's clear that few traces of this past remain.
4棵大槐树，在我小的时候，我就觉得那个树好高好高，但是现在感觉的就没那么高了。 他已经见证了我们那代人那个时候是有粮票的，因为是大人和孩子好像定量不一样，那么有粮本儿有粮票，因为那个时候的副食比较匮乏，计划经济嘛，国家也不富有，所以呢，大家这点粮票可能大部分人可能就是不太够吃。那么就要补充一些其他的东西，那就是一些野菜呀、什么之类的。
Looking back, Auntie Han says she can't believe how much life has changed.
这就是豆制品。过了，你给我看看时间。我今天啊，准备10个菜。
哇，10个菜，
有鱼啊，有鱼有肉。 真的，我连像样的苹果我好像没有吃过。印象当中啊，记忆当中小的时候确实没有。现在生活水平确实提高多了，所以小的时候没吃到的那些东西，现在补回来了，补回来了。
China now stands as the world's second largest economy, but faces other challenges under a new era. Economic growth, for one, has not benefited all segments of society equally. According to the International Monetary Fund, China is one of the most unequal countries in the world, and its 100 wealthiest individuals have more wealth than the poorest 2/5 of the country's population combined. And there's a new threat. The country's economy is now growing at its slowest pace in close to 30 years, made worse by a bruising trade war with the United States.
Younger people, when their parents say, oh, things are better now than they were in the Cultural Revolution, young people don't want to hear that. They want to know, how are things now?
But China's material success has no doubt also spurred a growing sense of national pride, particularly as President Xi's signature Belt and Road Initiative seeks to return China to its rightful place at the center of the world. Today, China's high-speed rail links its people to not just the big cities, but to many small towns as well. And while this is something that we have come to be familiar with or know about the new, modern China, it may very well be something that Chairman Mao may not be able to recognize: China's world-class infrastructure built in one generation.
Though it's not as well known as Beijing, Shanghai, or Shenzhen, Chongqing is one of the poster childs of China's spectacular economic boom. Part of the reason is that Beijing views Chongqing as a key hub connecting China's wealthy East Coast with the underdeveloped West. The first express rail service between China and Europe commenced in Chongqing in 2011. Since then, as many as 59 mainland cities have launched direct rail services between China and Europe, most of which were launched after President Xi Jinping unveiled his Belt and Road Initiative in 2013.
Due to subsidies offered under the Belt and Road Initiative, cross-border trains have emerged as a compelling option for transporting goods from China to Europe.
The bigger mindset or bigger strategy behind all these subsidies is actually for China to be able to export its manufacturing capacity to the rest of the world in a cost-efficient way, and at the same time to import consumer goods as well as industrial intermediates so that it can sustain its economy and to support consumption, upgrade the quality of life, etc.
China's stated goal is that the Belt and Road Initiative will bring benefits to all the countries it passes through. But it's still struggling to ease concerns over Mr. Xi's signature plan, especially among countries wary about debt, transparency, and Chinese influence. These concerns have caused some Belt and Road projects in Myanmar and Malaysia, for example, to be stalled or renegotiated. Concerns notwithstanding, people tell me the Belt and Road Initiative has created new opportunities for companies. One example is YPL, a joint venture between Singapore's Pacific Integrated Logistics Group and Chongqing state-owned enterprise Yuxing-O.
随着现在这个中国这个推广这个中国班列以来，这个模式呢 大致上从中国直接到我们欧洲的路程是大概是14到18天，所以基本上是缩短了2/3的这个时间。
Since 1992, China has plowed 8.5% of its annual GDP into infrastructure development, which is an important driver of Chinese economic growth and jobs. And the country is now the world's largest investor in infrastructure, surpassing the United States and the European Union.
Analysts say infrastructure spending and tax cuts have been important in propping up the Chinese economy so far this year. But looking ahead, they say other stimulus measures, including fiscal stimulus and perhaps a potential trade deal with the United States, could become badly needed.
Today, China's economy is growing at its slowest rate in nearly 30 years. Amid the economic downturn, President Xi Jinping has urged vigilance against threats to the Communist Party's legitimacy to rule.
At the end of the day, it's not an elected government. Its legitimacy is based on pretty much that social pact of economic growth and, say, defending China's sovereignty or raising China's status in the world. But with the economic slowdown, how can you achieve the other two, right?
Still, over the last 7 decades, China has been transformed into a country that looks nothing like what Mao Zedong envisioned as a communist state. And beyond its national borders, China is also trying to tap on the 60 million overseas Chinese.
So you can he call me Babushka, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Babushka Pauline.
Spending time at the Singapore Botanic Gardens, that's a regular routine for 74-year-old Singaporean Pauline Ong, the youngest of 3 sisters born in Shanghai.
Hi,
Pauline. Hi, nice to meet you.
In 1950, 1 year after the establishment of the People's Republic of China, the parents decided to move the entire family out of the mainland. Her father was an alumnus of the prestigious Jiao Tong University of Shanghai, and at that time, he was working for the then British Ministry of Works in Shanghai.
There was request or order from the British PWD to say that, okay guys, all the engineers, we are going to bring you out from Shanghai to work in Hong Kong. My father then was in Beijing because he looks after the buildings belonging to one of the engineers. So my mother just had 2 weeks notice, and it was a tough decision what to do. In that 2 weeks, they just wrapped up the house, whatever they could put in bags, suitcases, because the order is you're going by train, so no big luggage.
This was in Beijing or Shanghai?
Oh, Shanghai. This is all in Shanghai. We think it's around November, going to say goodbye to a cousin.
This was just before they left for
Just
Hong Kong.
before.
Life in Hong Kong wasn't smooth sailing. The British didn't want to recognize her father's university, and so, instead of being an engineer, he became a draftsman. After a few years, the family moved once again to Singapore. They may have left Shanghai a few decades ago, but even today, the family still tries to stay in touch with their Shanghainese roots.
See, this is Shanghainese chicken soup. We do it with a whole chicken, usually for New Year. So inside, we have our golden egg nugget. We call it dejiao, and it's to symbolize gold.
Okay.
And now you try the mantou. It's homemade, and it's really Shanghainese and northern.
Thank you so much.
We very quickly connected when China opened up. I remember the first time my mother went was in 1978, was her first trip back. And then I followed about 1980s, and we've been going back every year. And in the early days, as soon as we were able to invite relatives, we invited 3 sets of relatives over through months and 1 whole year of writing letters of sponsorship, and they came to visit.
Today, many of Singapore's ethnic Chinese citizens are descendants of immigrants, like Pauline and her elder sister Marjorie drifted to its shores amid China's shifting political tides.
Childhood memory, yes, is one. And to go back to China now, where we've been a few times, it's a new discovery and a new understanding, and an example of knowing what is growth.
It's a geographical place where I was born, left at 5 years old. So of course memories are there, and I'm curious, and when I go back it's like, oh, this is the place or that is the place, purely as a discovery. But right now I'm true blue Singaporean, so going back is to see the place of my birth or eat the food that I think, but it's merely a place as a tourist place.
The Chinese diaspora now numbers about 60 million, of which more than 70% are in Asia, especially Southeast Asia. And the descendants of the earlier batches of Chinese immigrants have long since forged new identities in the countries they settled in. In China, some scholars describe overseas Chinese as collectively carrying the influence of a developed country. In recent years, new measures have been introduced to make it easier for Chinese diaspora to re-migrate to China. To better understand China's diaspora strategies, I speak with Professor Elaine Ho. She recently authored a book called Citizens in Motion that looks at what she termed multi-directional migrations by Chinese in the region.
Today what we see is China's diaspora strategies that have become increasingly formalized and elaborate, ranging from the national to the provincial and municipal levels through organizations such as the Qiaolian, Qiaoban, as well as student associations.
At a national work meeting on overseas Chinese in 2017, President Xi Jinping had called for closely uniting with overseas Chinese in support of the Chinese dream.
I think partly it's about enabling them to maintain their Chinese identity, recognizing that they are an extension of China in terms of their ethnicity, in terms of perhaps the languages they speak, whether it's a Chinese dialect or speaking Mandarin. So there is that cultural extension of the nation. Apart from the cultural reasons, right, it's also in terms of economic motivations. So recognizing that the Chinese born abroad, they carry with them certain knowledge, networks, skills that could benefit China's development, either through direct investment or through personal re-migration working in China now, or perhaps through the Guanxi networks, for instance.
As China and the Chinese diaspora become more influential globally, it's expected that the impacts of such efforts and engagement will be even more intricate. Although they were both born in China, fate has taken Auntie Han and Auntie Pauline on very different paths. But the rise of China is still a miracle shared by the people of their generation, no matter where they are. With China's ever-growing influence in global affairs, like it or not, the China story will likely to continue to affect the lives of many people for generations to come.